Hello, Darius, Van, and Cook. Any thoughts about the current state of game optimization?
Oh, right. You read this already.
It feels like AAA games lately have increasing minimum requirements with barely improved graphics quality. Cheers.
Okay.
Well, it's diminishing returns on fidelity. So like they're making improvements. They might even still be making 10% improvements, but it's 10% on something that's already really high. So it's hard for you to be able to really tell.
And if this highlights anything, I think it's the cleverness of old school developers.
Oh yeah.
I remember watching this video on like how they did scope reflections back before reflections weren't a thing. Dude. And it was this wild thing where there was like a fake alternate version of the skybox of something, and it would invert it, and just like the whole thing was fake. The whole thing was fake, but you would never notice it in 1,000 years of playing the game. And so a lot of what you're seeing today is, but we did scope reflections, but real. And it's super computationally intensive.
Scope reflections.
Yeah, it's super intensive, but the meaningfulness to you, the average gamer, is basically zero. So it feels like, so look at something like vegetation. Okay, do you remember the first game that popped up where they showed
actual reactive vegetation?
Yeah, a character model like crouching through ferns or something.
Insane, yeah.
Well, what game was it? Was it Crisis 2 or something?
Probably.
I don't know. It was something, but there was like this like kind of viral thing where they showed a player character like crouching and going through like some dense vegetation, and like a fern like almost like it was on a hinge, like moves out of the way and then goes back. Super cool.
Conrad said volumetric footsteps in sand, snow, and mud. Yeah, like Snow Runner, having like your tires make proper imprints into the ground stuff, like that's crazy.
Yeah, but the thing is that
not really anymore, but it was crazy when it happened.
We were able to do a big leaf thing on a hinge, 15 years ago or whenever that game came out. Was it Far Cry? It might have been Far Cry. Far Cry was such a good game. You should play it. You've never played
the
it, have you?
One?
Yeah.
I watched you play it. You streamed it one night.
True.
But
okay, so we could do that 15 years ago. So now, you can have 25 hinges on this plant, for this bunch of leaves and this bunch of leaves. Is that making that meaningful a difference to everyday gameplay?
If you're going from, 10 polygons to 12, it's like, whoa.
World changing.
If you're going from 10,000 polygons to 12,000 polygons, it's like,
It's not that big of a deal.
It already looked pretty good. I don't know.
So there's a big kind of diminishing returns factor here. And another key thing to understand is that when you're looking at new games that are coming out, how good they're going to look is so dependent these days on where we are in the current generation console life cycle. So what I suspect is that we're going to start to get, and realistically, we already are starting to get, now that we're deep enough into PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series, we're starting to get games that really do look and behave meaningfully differently from the games that were designed for the last generation consoles.
Yeah.
And as developers continue to squeeze more performance out of these current gen consoles, we're going to start to see them utilize them in ways that are more meaningful to gameplay, whether that comes in the form of more destructive environments or whether that comes in the form of more interactive elements in environments like the accurate, tire tracks in the snow. Does that change gameplay a lot? No, but what I bet you would find is if you go back and play an older game that just has two versions of the snow texture, one with a tire mark down the middle of it and one without it, right? You're gonna be playing that game and you're gonna go, man, this feels like janky and kludgy.
Yeah. It's smaller, less noticeable stuff.
Yeah, so I think part of it is that it's not as exciting to go forward as it is jarring to go backward. And lighting is a big part of that. Lighting is so hard.
We're also not running into as much of like when we were growing up, you see like the first 3D game.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, wow. And then you see like the first 3D game that doesn't look like butt.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh wow. And then the first 3D game with physics that like actually matter and stuff. Like there's these really big, like, oh my goodness, technological jumps. And now we've passed a lot of those, I think, in the sense of the things that we've traditionally done in video games and the hurdles that are the most obvious to jump over. There's still stuff that people are going to figure out to do that's really cool technologically. But a lot of the obvious ones are done now. So when a new game comes out, I don't think the graphical fidelity is necessarily the main thing that people are looking for. I don't remember the name of that game that came out recently, but it was like megabytes. It was tiny. Animal Well? People love it because it has an art style. The art style itself matters now. There isn't so many limitations to art style anymore. I mean, look at Star Citizen. Like they're just cranking everything. So I don't know. Yeah, I think that's it.
All right, let's see. DLL Grok, question mark? I don't know.
Remember when this was exciting?
Oh boy.
But it like actually was.
Yeah, like that was crazy.
Yeah. Wow. The
Like-
model comes out.
Like look at those face.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, like it's and it's not just completely flat. Like there's a nose. You got a polygon there.
Yeah, that was nuts.
That was wild.
Yeah.
And like the hair. The hair's like 20 polygons.
It's not just painted onto the circle that is her head. Like there's other things going on.
Yeah, textured. It's
Yeah.
textured. Look at these textures. Like that looks like, like old and stuff.
Yeah.
Wasn't Half-Life 1 the first game with bones? People had bones?
I don't remember that.
Is
but
that
maybe.
right?
If
Maybe.
I understand correctly, that was like the first game that used skeletal models. I think Half-Life has always been like the new tech kind of thing. I don't know if that's accurate or not.
Some people in chat are saying, I think so.
There was a huge amount of innovation
Bones.
and movement for a long time there. The Titanfall games, a bunch of the COD games and stuff like that were really working on like parkour stuff, sliding, different things like that.
Yeah.
That's where a lot of technological advancement was for a
Map
while.
traversal is
Right
a huge
now,
thing. Yeah.
it feels like lighting
Yeah.
is
lighting.
like the main focus of the industry.
Lighting and lumen,
And
right?
you really won't notice it, like I said, going
Unless you go
forward.
back,
And then
yeah.
you'll go back and you'll be like, this just looks so
Lighting
flat and
sucks.
dull.
It feels old.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily know why.
Yeah, lighting, color, HDR, those gonna. That's a big one, right? Like if you're running one of the latest games and you're running it on a non-HDR display, I would make the argument that for a AAA game that's really designed to be played on, a 1000 nit peak brightness display in HDR, you are probably not having the full experience of what it's supposed to look like because of how much they're investing in that lighting technology in that game.
Yeah. And like obviously lighting and character movement, these are things that people have worked on forever, but there was a bit of a character movement renaissance a little while ago with those games that I mentioned, and lighting has been a huge focus for a while now. I don't necessarily know what'll be next, but
Nanite. I've been seeing some interesting stuff with procedural animations. So you only have to make like 6 poses. I mean, this is all Unreal Engine 5 stuff, but that's too cutting edge to be included in like the next couple releases. Like simplifying things now that we're getting into super high resolution stuff, like polygons and that sort of doesn't even matter anymore. Ray tracing is another big one, but again, that's lighting, right? So I don't know.
Remember when ragdoll physics was the new hotness?
yeah, that was a huge deal.
Wasn't that Half-Life 2 with the Havoc engine was another huge leader in that?
I could watch this over and over and over again for the rest of my life and still find it funny.
Oh my gosh.
Do you guys remember this benchmark?
I had
Yeah.
never seen this before.
Yeah.
So it's a ragdoll physics benchmark from 3D Mark.
I also do remember the first game. I don't remember what the game was, but I remember someone said Prince of Persia was the big movement game. Sorry, I'm going to come back to what I was just saying in a second. But Brink, actually. Search like first shooter game with parkour movement. Brink comes up. I was so incredibly excited for Brink. And then they just like borderline lied about a bunch of stuff. And it really pissed me off. And all my friends quit like almost right away. There's supposed to be like a single player campaign. But it was just the multiplayer maps with like a storyline intro video thing, and then bots playing the exact same game mode that multiplayer played. It was BS. Brink was rough, but it brought parkour movement to the 3D space,
Right.
In a really interesting way.
That's cool.
And like a long time ago. Brink was released 2011. It's a lot older than a lot of people think. It's like vaulting and sliding.
I hate
and like
that
all these other
2011
things.
is a lot older than people think.
It really is, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oof.